But, of course, we have to start in State College, where despite a massive fourth quarter comeback, the Penn State Nittany Lions lost the big one yet again, this time to Oregon, this time in double overtime to a final score of 30-24. I'm not going to bury the lead here. We usually at this show like to talk about the winners first. But the story here is Penn State losing a massive game, the game of the James Franklin era, to Oregon in double overtime. Penn State, lousy offensively for the most of this game. 109 yards of total offense through the first three quarters. No, that is not a first quarter stat or a halftime stat. That is 45 minutes into the game. 109 yards of total offense, and you could have told me it was worse. The offensive line was generating zero movement up front against Oregon's defensive line, which totally hampered the run game. This is a team that less than a year ago in the Big Ten title game ran for 300 yards on Oregon's defensive front. Lousy day for them, specifically from Nick Singleton. He was really hampered there. Katron Allen kind of took the lead as the lead runner late in the game, but all in all, really bad day for the run game there at Penn State. And then the play calling. I'm a big Andy Kotelnicki guy. For the most of the game, I didn't really get it. A lot of inside runs on 2nd and 11 or 2nd and longs or 1st and 10s. A lot of the run pass stuff that really infuriates me as a fan of this sport and someone who thinks he understands what good football looks like. Way too cute in critical moments. I think there was one, I don't know if it was a 3rd and short or a 4th and short, but they go wildcat. And it's kind of rushed. They're getting to the line quickly. And of course, because everything is out of order and you don't have your quarterback under center controlling things, you get a false start, kill some momentum that they had going there. So you already had the run game that was bad. You had poor play calling for most of the game. I thought Kotelnicki did a nice job late when they finally needed to wake up. And then Drew Aller, off target, uncomfortable, not making confident decisions. You saw a quarterback for the most part that just wasn't in a rhythm. He finished the day 14 of 25 for 137 yards, 2 touchdowns, the game-sealing interception in double overtime. Add this into the big game matchups from last year. And we spoke about this on last week's show where he had about, I think, 4 games against teams that were college football playoff teams that were Power 4 as well, too. Because I'm taking away the Boise State game because we can all agree that's not what I'd consider a tough matchup necessarily. In those games, adding into this one against Oregon, he is averaging 154 yards through the air, completing just 55% of his passes, 5 touchdowns, 5 picks. Now, Penn State did march back in the fourth quarter in their do-or-die moments. They were like, oh, shit, we're down a lot. We should open this thing up. Deep shot to Devontae Ross, cut it to 7. Nice final drive that found Ross on a nice end around. That was a good play design by Kotelnicki. Sent this thing to overtime. From there on out, you know the rest of the story. Penn State takes the lead on a Katron Allen touchdown. Oregon grinds their way into the end zone on some plays that you were like, whew, that was a little risky. A little flip to the tight end, I believe, that got them that game-tying touchdown. Oregon scores on the very first play of the second overtime, and then Drew Aller, very first play, throws a pick, and you're just left stunned. And it's everybody in the crowd, it's the coaching staff, it's the players. It's just, it was shocking for how much momentum they had going, how quickly it fell apart in overtime. So that was the genesis of the game, the storyline for the game, like where I kind of was like, okay, well, how do I feel about Penn State after this loss? This felt a little Ohio State-y from the Penn State offense. We watched a group for 45 minutes that didn't look like it trusted its quarterback. And because of that, decided to ram its head in between the tackles for no success for 45 minutes. That felt like the Michigan game that Ohio State played last year, where they're like, we don't really trust our quarterback. We're going to just try and grit out a 13-10 win, even though we've got superstars on the outside. Because that's the big thing, too, with Penn State. your whole plan this past offseason was, well, we're going to add 3 really talented wide receivers. They had virtually no impact on this game except for the scores that Devontae Ross had. And it just felt like you got all these guys in, maybe use them, maybe try to make them the focal point of this offense, especially when you realize that the run game has been bottled up so much through the first half, 3 quarters, the entire day. Penn State's approach through the first 3 quarters, I was like, that just feels like what Ohio State did against Michigan. And then they woke up in the fourth quarter because they had to. It was kind of like how Ohio State responded last year in the college football playoffs, where it was like, oh, we can't win games doing that. No, we have to put the ball in our best players' hands. I thought in the fourth quarter, Drew Aller looked confident. He looked poised. He looked like he was confident in his arm and his eyes. He was hitting deep shots. Their drives in the fourth quarter, you were like, hey, where has this been? Why haven't we been doing this? Why did we wait until our backs were against the wall to open this up? It feels like maybe you could have had a better offensive day if you just set the tone early like that. It totally reflected what we saw out of Ohio State last season. And instead of Ohio State having like a full month to respond after their loss to Michigan, Penn State just had 15 minutes, and it's hard to respond that quickly and totally reverse the curse that is sitting on this program. Now, while I say it's like, that teaching moment, can this be the same lesson that Ohio State's loss to Michigan was? Can Penn State be like, hey, that last part there, that really worked. Maybe we just make that our offense. Maybe we put a little bit of faith into our quarterback who's been there for a while, who is supposed to be this hyped up great prospect. Maybe we just put him in a position to succeed better. I think it can be, because we're sitting here and I'm going to say this 3 times, it's still September by the time this show is coming out. There is so much football left to be played. Penn State season is definitely not over. Will it be? Will it be the same lesson that Ohio State learned? Can they take it to the same extent that Ohio State did? I'm not too sure. Because this is the other thing that we're going to have to talk about with Penn State. You're going to have to cut me some slack here. Because I came into this week, I said, it's Penn State's day. They cannot lose the game. Therefore, they will not lose the game. And I thought Penn State was going to open up things offensively. I thought they were going to just be what we expected them to be. I've said through the history of this show, my love for college football is just about as high as anything else in my life. Goes Jessica, my lovely girlfriend, college football. That's the order it goes in my life. Well, okay, Jessica and my family, college football. That's the order. I think that's the right order. Don't forget the boys, too. Jessica, family, the boys, college football. College football is a close second with a lot of stuff tied for first. But as passionate as my love is for college football, it's still very new. So every time that I would hear the chatter of Penn State not being able to win the big one and James Franklin's record, I was always just like, well, that's just something people like to say in this sport. I never actually got to live through what this full era of being the little brother of college football has meant. And I'm starting to get to understand it the more that I have been in the depths of college football the last couple of years. This team just invents new ways to lose games. They are now 1-15 against top 5 opponents. They are 4-21 against the top 10. 15-30 against the top 25, but that reflects that you're usually beating teams in that lower section there that are not supposed to be as good as you are. James Franklin has 2 top 10 wins since 2016, one of which was against Utah in 2023 when Cam Rising left the game with an injury, and then the other was last year's game against Boise State, a G5 representative. Not really worth being a top 10 caliber team. The AP, So he really just has one real one, Utah. But anyway, I'm not going to argue whether or not AP got it right with Boise State being a top 10 team last year. James Franklin, the most perfectly above average head coach in the sport. He is not good enough to be great, not bad enough, not nearly bad enough to be fired. So you're just stuck in purgatory here. And I'm an advanced analytics guy. Here's some Spring Blake advanced analytics. James Franklin, too nice of a guy. He's too nice. He is too nice of a dude. I watch the psychopaths in this sport like Dan Lanning specifically. Kirby Smart is a crazy man. Who are some of the other crazy psychopaths? I want to say like Greg Schiano, but that's not the same type of success that we have here. James Franklin just feels like a doormat sometimes. He feels like, oh shucks, we lost again. Meanwhile, Dan Lanning is talking in a post-game press conference like he just snorted a line of coke 5 minutes before the game ended. Like you just look at the way that these two guys behave on the sidelines or interact with their team, and you're like, James Franklin's a really good coach. He's also probably too nice of a guy. And I feel really bad for him because there's just a certain limitation here at Penn State. There are certain teams that will always have a substantial talent edge. The Oregons, the Alabamas, the Georgias. Penn State's always going to be in that second tier. And then there are also going to be certain coaches and brands that will be able to have the competitive edge to both, either outsmart the team schematically or just bully them around the football team, which Oregon did a little bit of both this past weekend. Frankly, you look at that final score, 30-24, it wasn't that close. Like, yeah, they were able to tie it up in the fourth quarter off some big drives and get it to overtime. It was not that close of a game. Oregon was pushing them around on both sides of the trenches. They had the better quarterback. They had the better head coach. Penn State took advantage of some nice moments to send it to OT, but I don't leave this game being like, hey, 6-point loss, everything's fine. No, this is a turning point for Penn State. Now, like I said, it's still September, so it can turn in the way you want it to. Like, what if we go through the rest of this regular season and you're like, oh, hey, this is an explosive passing attack, and Aller is playing some of the best quarterbacking in the sport at the moment, and Pena is making his impact, catching 8 grabs a game, and Kyron Hudson's hitting deep shots. There is a chance that this responds in the way that Ohio State did to the similar degree. However, you don't earn the right to do that because of your extensive history. We could lean into Ohio State because they've been the dogs of the Big Ten for a while now. They have national championships. They have success. They have this pedigree for a long time now. Penn State, you haven't earned the right for us to buy into that yet. So it's going to need to take a lot of seeing to believe. It can go that way. Or this will be the flip side, and we'll just continue to have the same issues with Penn State that we always have, and they'll be stuck in this purgatory. They feel like the little brother of college football. That's what it is. And I feel awful for their tortured fan base. I mean, so many things. You've got the overturned fumble where you're like, was his knee down? Was it? Enough evidence to overturn that? Like, it looked like it might have been. It also looked like it was still levitating a little bit. Was there any contact made? So you lose that. Bad holding call on Dennis Sutton. Like, there are a few things that you're like, oh, that really sucks. But even then, you're talking about a game that really wasn't that close. And I feel bad for Penn State fans because there's no way to shape this win and be like, hey, moving forward, this, and this is going to happen. No, it's you're going to have to prove it to me in the playoffs, really, to buy into Penn State, because that's the thing with their schedule, too. It's not like, you've got the game against Ohio State. It'd be awesome to go in and win that one. Like, that would be a massive win. It would still just be one game. And at that point, I would say, like, oh, well, maybe they can do it. I'm going to need to see them go on a run in the postseason because of the way their schedule pans out. There's not a lot to really hang your hat on the rest of the way. Still a really good team. Still, to me, one of the better rosters in the sport, but there's something missing here. And I don't know how they fix it. I don't know. They're really going to have a gut check moment. And I think it has to be a similar response to what Ohio State did. I think they're going to have to look at themselves and just say, like, we need to put the pedal to the metal for the rest of this season and just run up scores and build confidence in our team, because the confidence is at an all-time low now after that game. That was a lot of talk on Penn State. I didn't mean to go that long, but to me, they were the biggest story. Let's go to the flip side now. As you can see, got the nice little cutoff today for the first time on the Spring Blake College Football Show. Wash, rinse, repeat. Dan Lanning just continues to stack a remarkable resume as the head coach for Oregon. And I was lingering on this one for a couple of days since Saturday night, and I've officially landed on it. Dan Lanning has the crown. He is the best active head coach in the sport right now. I think he's taken over Kirby Smart's job in that lead role there. I think he is the best guy that we have coaching college football right now. I don't know how anybody could watch the way this man leads a football team and either not want to play for him if you're a young kid or to not want your kid to go play for him if you're a parent. I would send my kid to Dan Lanning over anybody in this sport. And it's not just the fact that they're successful and they've got the money and you know you're going to be competitive and it's a good developmental way to get yourself into the pros. You're also just going to learn a lot about mental fortitude and continuity and teamwork. You're going to leave Oregon better than you would leave any other program in the sport right now, and that's because of Dan Lanning. The mentality that he instills in his players, he is somehow able to make tough road environments feel like home games for the Ducks. I remember last year, I think they went to Wisconsin, and Wisconsin does the jump around at the start of the fourth quarter, and Oregon was just like, let's jump around. Let's make this our thing. And then they were able to, I think they were trailing at that point, and they did a come from behind win and took over, and it felt like they were the home team buying into the no, this is the fourth quarter. We're going to get the momentum now. They did the same thing at Penn State this past week. Penn State was an awesome environment. It was awesome. And there were a couple of false starts or a couple of miscues. It wasn't a perfect day for the Ducks. But the mentality that is instilled into this roster from the top, from Dan Lanning, has them able to compete anytime, any place. He's the best coach in the game. He's the best coach right now. There's no one better in this sport than Dan Lanning. I firmly believe that. And man, what a performance from Dante Moore. He finishes the day 29-39, 248, 3 touchdowns. That to me, think about that for a second. You've got Drew Aller for years now, has been the dude at Penn State, and you get a really nice offensive coordinator in Kotelnicki, and you add wide receivers to go with a good offensive line and run game. And you for 45 minutes were watching an offense that didn't have trust in that quarterback. Meanwhile, at Oregon, you have a rebuilt offensive line. You have a really great offensive coordinator in Will Stein, but a really new offensive line. New wide receiver room that lost Evan Stewart, their top guy in the offseason. And you have a new quarterback who's been waiting his turn, but is ready to, make his moment known, make his name known. They had all the confidence in the world in Dante Moore, and he more than delivered. And yeah, a lot of it was some easy setup throws, some nice play calling by Will Stein. There were some impressive throws on the run, contorting his body. He had great zip all day. You just had a quarterback and a coaching staff that put all the confidence in the world in their quarterback. And that really, to me, was the biggest difference in why Oregon got the win versus why Penn State lost. They trusted their quarterback, their young, inexperienced quarterback, to go into a crazy environment where the other team should have all the confidence in the world in their guy. And Oregon's faith in their quarterback made a huge difference. He was fantastic. The last thing that I will say about Oregon, the fact that this is just the beginning for this team, holy shit. Oh my God. Everything that I just said, new quarterback, still pretty inexperienced, a bunch of new running backs, pretty new offensive line. Your top wideout is a true freshman. You lost your other top wide receiver who might be back by the end of the regular season, if not the playoffs. So many new pieces defensively. Whew. Really young team, a lot of new pieces. To start off the season in the way that they had, there hasn't been a more impressive team in the sport. And I thought that already heading into the Penn State game. To go in and steal that win from James Franklin in a moment that they needed, that propels them into what's going to be an awesome season. And it already was going to be awesome, but the fact that this is the starting product, the finished product by the end of the year, I mean, we might be sitting here in January and being like, yeah, that team that was awesome through the first month and then continued to just get better every week, yeah, they steamrolled everybody in the college football playoffs, and the Ducks were your national champions. That's where we could be sitting. I wouldn't be surprised because you take a look at the schedule. It's hard to not envision another undefeated season here for the Ducks. They're second in a row since joining the Big Ten. Imagine that, a Pac-12 team joining the Big Ten and being like, yeah, we're just going to rip off 2 undefeated seasons, 2 conference championship berths. They've got Indiana, no joke, but I think they'll get by them. Rutgers, Wisconsin, Iowa, Minnesota, USC, and Washington. There are some tough games on there, but the Ducks will be favored in each of them. Again, no team has been more impressive. After getting this one at Penn State, it's hard to not visualize this team as the front runner for the national championship. What a game. What a game. What a showing for the Ducks. Now,